Okay, let us now welcome our speaker, Jerry from Ventura.
Okay. Check. Okay. Hi, my name's Jerry. I'm an alcoholic. Again, let me start off by thanking Myra for asking me to speak. I'm glad that, I just got to get the elephant out of the room. This is one of the hardest things I can do in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've actually lied my way out of speaking before, which I know is not what you're supposed to do. And I got sober in Pacific Group, and there's people there that just love to speak. They love this podium. They jockey for position to get to the podium. And I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy who likes to speak. And when she asked me to speak, it was a couple months ago. And I go, well, what's the furthest date out you have? And she said it was October, and I go, okay, good. There's 4 months. There's 4 Fridays in October. And then I knew I was planning a vacation in October, too, to do this. And I do one day of this charity event when I go to this place out of the country. And I go, well, good, I'll have the excuse that I was out of the country doing charity work, and I'm sorry that I missed my speaking engagement. So, that's how much I'm kind of terrified of speaking. So, anyway, now that I got that out of the way, that's it? No. Okay. I know Robert asked me if I could get you guys out of here by 9 o'clock. So, but anyway, let's see. So where do I start? Before I get muddled in all this, I just want to say that I've been sober since 1986. I just turned 30 years sober in April. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. I went up and down in AA for a really long time, and I had all this anxiety, had a lot of drama and stuff, and until I finally just started working the steps on a daily basis and really doing an inventory and doing it as outlined in the book, my life really didn't change. And I've been doing the steps every day. Every day I get on my knees and pray. And I've been doing that for the last 5 years, and the last 5 years have definitely been the best my sobriety has ever been and my life has ever been. So if you're wondering how to do this, I know it's suggested, but now it's just a way of life. And like I said, they really work, and I didn't think they would work. So anyway, now that I got that out of the way, I'll start my talk. Okay, so I grew up in this family. We all migrated here from Ohio, and we lived in this apartment building. And there was a lot of us. It was my grandfather, her sister, my grandfather's mom, and then us in this apartment building in the San Fernando Valley in Sun Valley, California. I was like 3 years old when we came here, and they're all heavy drinkers, and we lived in this apartment building. There was 2 units side by side, and there were eight units in each apartment, and we'd have these big family fights, and there'd be all this yelling back and forth across the courtyard, and we'd yell from apartment to apartment, like, "Oh, F you," and it was like we invented the Jerry Springer show, kind of, and there's just always a lot of drama, a lot of alcoholism. I have a lot of relatives that, I have uncles that died in prison because they were murderers and stuff. So, and all of it was behind alcohol. We'd have these uncles come and visit, or cousins or something, from Ohio, and and we'd wake up the next morning and the car would be gone, and we'd never see that car again. It was that kind of thing. So, it's just the kind of life. It's just sort of, that's how I started my life, and it didn't really get much better. It was kind of just grew up with alcoholism. I definitely remember my first day of kindergarten. I was an only child too. And I remember my first day of kindergarten, we were playing blocks, and this kid took my block, and I just smacked him in the head with the block. And I'm not a sharer, I guess. And I just always kind of dealt with every problem that way from that point on. And I think I was really born with this disease of alcoholism. I think that there was no invisible line. The first time I drank, that was my lips were the invisible line, basically. And so anyway, I went through school. I always had a lot of trouble in school. I was really intelligent when I was a kid, really intelligent at school. Like for some reason I could take any test and pass it. And I remember I think in second grade they said I was reading at a college level, which baffles me because I've never been able to really apply any of that knowledge to my life, but and here I am in this family of, these hillbillies from Ohio, and then there's me, and it's like I even look at these family photos, and I definitely look like the alien in this family. But so anyway, the first time I got high, I was 12 years old, and then the first time I drank, I was 13, and like I said, from the first time I got high, I'm sorry if my drug addiction offends people, but I'm also a drug addict. And I know it's Alcoholics Anonymous, but Alcoholics Anonymous works much better for me than NA, so that's why I identify as somebody in Alcoholics Anonymous. But anyway, it's like the first time I got high, my whole life became that until I got sober. Like everything I did was for me to get high. And I hear a lot of stories in Alcoholics Anonymous where, well, I knew when I finally got my Harvard Law degree that maybe I had a problem. And for me, there was nothing like that. I was just a total drug addict, alcoholic all through high school. Excuse me. And what happened in high school is when I really started getting in trouble. I was always kind of a petty thief, and my mom was really involved with this drug dealer at the time, and so I had access to these drugs too, or mainly pot and stuff. But like I said, there was always drinking there, and I remember in junior high all the principals always knew me by name, every school I ever went to, and I saw this principal at a high school dance, and I was talking to her, and then she called me in that Monday, and she goes, "If I ever smell marijuana on you again, I'm going to expel you from school." And she goes, "That really explains a lot of why I have had so many problems with you." And then in like 2 weeks, she walked up to me at lunch, and she smelled pot on me, and she was serious. I got expelled from school and got sent to a continuation school. So anyway, I went to the continuation school, and the way it was designed is you could graduate any time. And I remember I go, really? All I got to do is do this and I could graduate. So I took all these books home. You weren't supposed to take certain books, but of course I took every book I was supposed to read, and everything was based on this test. And I was out of high school in like 2 weeks. I did really 3 years of high school in like 2 weeks and got out of high school. But then, and I was pretty young. I was I was only 17, and it was only like around November. So, and I was supposed to graduate in June if I would have stayed in regular high school. So, I got one of my first job, and I got to work it was in construction, and I got to work with real men, like these guys were men, and I wanted to be one of the men. And, of course, just all the drinking and everything, all the, and plus I had money too, because I finally had a job, and, which was the worst thing that the only thing that ever stopped me really from hurting myself probably was the fact that I couldn't get access anymore, so anyway, and I got arrested a couple times, and I just got in a lot of trouble, of course, no big events. Like I said, there's no big dramatic events. Like I didn't wake up in a blackout at the Playboy Mansion, or anything like that. So I hear these stories and I go, man, why did you quit, But anyway, so I'm just, I started just getting in trouble, and my family moved me to this uncle in Montana. We had this uncle that was a pretty successful farmer in Montana, and they said, I was just in so much trouble, and I had to tell this judge, look, I'm leaving town, I'm leaving. At this time, we lived in San Diego, this little town called Vista, California, and I'm leaving town. If you just don't put me in jail, I promise I'll leave and I won't come back. And I was good for my word, by the way, on that. So he sent me to this uncle in Montana, and I worked on this farm, and it was just a really great place to do hallucinogenics and drink. One of my first jobs my uncle gave me, he had no slack. I mean, he knew what he was dealing with. He was a really tough guy. He's a really good guy. And I think sometimes I look back, he's dead now, but I look back and I think he really knew a lot of what he was dealing with. But my first job was pick rocks. Like I had to drive he'd go, well, out there's rocks, and it was like miles and miles of farmland out in Montana. And I'd still manage to one time I was trying to unload all the rocks that I picked all day, and I forgot to set the brake, and it went down into the gully. Like I was there for like 2 weeks, and I had 3 issues like that where I'd get stuck somewhere. And but what started happening is that's when I was in this really small town, and I started getting arrested for being drunk in public, and then once it was such a small town that they would just see me and just stop me and just arrest me. And I'd say, well, what are you arresting me for? And they go, we don't know yet, but, when we get down to the station. And it was the weirdest jail. Like, it was like Mayberry RFD. And this lady would come and go, I'm going to go to the market across the street. What do you want? And, she'd bring me my food, and then they'd give me like a knife and fork. Like, you'd cook your own food in there. And I go, this isn't too bad. And they'd say, well, you can go now. And I go, really? Do I have to? This is the best I've ever ate. But it started getting really serious. Of course, I started owing people money and stuff like that. So my family one more time came and rescued me. And I had just turned 18, and I joined and I came back, and I had nothing to do, so I joined the military. And I really thought that would set me straight. But what happened in there is I learned in boot camp it was almost impossible to get a hold of alcohol and drugs. And at the time, I didn't know that I was really detoxing. I thought I was really losing my mind because I would start thinking I started kind of hearing things a little bit and things like that. But I really couldn't attribute it. I really thought it was like all the stress of all the discipline of, people making me get up, do push-ups, all this crap. And I'd go to I'd try to tell the company commander, I think there's something wrong with me. And he'd go, okay, give me 50 push-ups. I'd really tried to talk about my issues and my problems. And, they're preparing me for war. And I just, But anyway, so it was just more of the same. I just got in a lot of trouble in the Navy, and and because of all that trouble, they were going to deploy me overseas. Of course, one more time, they test you, and these written tests look excellent. Like, do you want to work on a nuclear submarine and stuff like that? And I go, sure, and then they get to know me, and they go, no, you're going out to the desert, and we need to keep an eye on people like you. We don't want people like you dealing with nuclear weapons, And so I got in just crazy trouble there because they're always watching you, they're always on top of you, and I had this top secret clearance. I was at this base where they test naval weapons and stuff like that, and once again, open spaces and hallucinogenics are my thing, And, so we'd walk, of course, and there's a lot of people like me in the military, and we'd do hallucinogenics and walk out in the middle of the desert, and also we'd be surrounded by people like, this might be radioactive out here. You can't be out here, and, of course, more and more trouble. And so it got to a point where I got in so much trouble that I was going to captain's mass after captain's mass, and so what they finally did is there was this master at arms on the base, and he was an alcoholic, and he goes, I'm not supposed to say this, but you're really an alcoholic, man. He goes, you're just out of control, and he goes, I know AA tells me I'm not supposed to tell you you're an alcoholic, but I'm telling you, you're an alcoholic. And that was the first time anybody really said anything like that, and I just couldn't believe this guy. This guy was like a really super buff older guy, he was like at least 40, and he was really trying to help me, but he was really super tough. Like, he was really like a real dick to me, kind of like because he was just doing his job, and so he goes, I'm going to talk to the captain. He goes, I'm like one of the only people that can really talk to the captain, and I'm going to see how this captain mass goes. And the captain asked me, he goes, I think you're an alcoholic too. He didn't say it like that, but I knew that they had talked. You could tell. But the way it's set up is it's like nobody really speaks for you. But the captain goes, he goes, I think you're a drug addict and an alcoholic. And he goes, I don't do this very often, but I could send you to either rehab or the brig. And I asked him, I go, could I think about that? And he goes, no. He He goes, no, you can't think about it. I need an answer right now. The military is very matter of fact. They don't care about your issues really, And I remember thinking like 30, is it like 60 days in the brig, or I think it was like 30 days in rehab. And I remember I couldn't imagine life without alcohol, and I remember taking the brig. I actually went to the brig. It was supposed to be 60 days, but it was 45 days in the brig over rehab. I could not imagine having to get sober. But anyway, I limped my way through the military, and when I left, I was still an E1. Nowhere to go, and I, even as much as I hated it, I tried to stay in the military because I felt like I had nowhere to go, and they just said, "No way, you can't stay. We don't re-up." I thought at least there'd be a place where they'd put a gun and they'd give me a gun and I could at least go somewhere and maybe they wouldn't have to think about me, but they didn't want me. So anyway, I lived in Seattle at the time, and my whole life was basically supporting myself through these like little petty crimes. And I lived in an apartment building, and it was this really shitty apartment building, and what I used to do to get money is I would go down to my neighbor's balcony. Like I dropped from my little balcony to his balcony when he'd go to work. And I'm up like 5 stories, and still it's, and here I am trying to steal like $2 or $3 at a time so he doesn't know. And I'm stealing his change, and I just did whatever I could, any little scam. And of course I was attracting people like me, and it's just nothing pretty there. Nothing. It was probably the worst I'd ever been in my life, because I was surviving, I was struggling and everything. And so what happened is I had a friend, and he got this really good job for this company called Tower Records, and he hadn't really seen me in a while, and he was actually one of my friends that he's actually one of my best friends. I was actually best man at his wedding 20 years ago. But he got this job in this record company. It was this fantastic job at Tower Records, and he says, "Well, yeah," he goes, "I could get you a job. I'm a manager here, and all this." And it was this really excellent job, and basically my job was to listen to records all day. It was a really easy job, and I became this buyer, which means I had to kind of predict what was going to be a big seller and not. But this whole job was like just basically within the music industry, and it came with like free concert tickets and all these really great perks. Zero money. Just above minimum wage, but all these outstanding perks, But what had happened with that is I ended up getting doing a lot of coke because at that time, they want you to buy these records, and these record reps come in all the time and, "Hey man, buy 5,000 Michael Jacksons, and then, and then that's all I did for like, that job didn't last long. Coke really, I don't know, there was people that were working the same place I was, and they'd been working there for years. I don't know how they survived that, but I went to this listening party for this artist called Todd Rundgren, and I didn't like Todd Rundgren's album, and I made it very clear. And so of course, the job went downhill. I ended up being a receiving clerk. They've demoted me to like receiving clerk, and that didn't last very long. So I started knowing I was starting to have a lot of trouble. And but at in that job, I met this girl. I had a girlfriend, and she was a really, really nice girl. This girl was really in love with me, and I just saw her as a source of getting drugs and alcohol. She had this really nice family. It was very big. She was a Latino family, so it was this humongous family. And they kind of made me one of their own, like kind of what happened there is I realized that these people loved me, and I was really starting to hurt them a lot, and I was treating this girl horrible. I took her credit, and of course, in that kind of family, everybody knows everything you're doing. So, it's like I used one of her credit cards and ran up I was supposed to just like go to the store, and I ended up spending like $1,200 on like 3 days on her credit card, and I didn't tell her until she got the bill and stuff like that, And it was just one thing after another. I even stole from these people, But kind of what happened there, I was trying to maintain a little bit. I was trying to kind of cut back a lot. But but what had happened is I wasn't working, and her dad was this really old school Latino guy, and he says, if you're going to date my daughter, you have to work. And I go, well, I can't find a job. He goes, well, I have a job for you. And this family put me to work in all these really kind of jobs I didn't like. They were physical labor jobs. You know, he was a mason that worked for the Los Angeles School District, and he gave me all these side jobs, and I was getting passed around in his family, and they were really trying to help me. I mean, and this is kind of my point is this is why I got sober, because I don't think people really cared about me until I got mixed up with that family, and I almost brings tears to my eyes thinking about them. But anyway. So what happened, he kept saying, you know, and they would give me like, oh, my cousin's doing the interviews at UPS, and, you know, go to this interview, and they'd schedule this interview, and then I go back and I tell them, hey, I couldn't make it to the interview. I said I win. They go, really? Well, my cousin did the interview, and he didn't see you. And I go, and I didn't know what else to do, so I would just keep lying and go, hey, man, your cousin, I don't know why he's saying he didn't see me, but I didn't show up for the interview. And so what he did is he got me this. So finally the dad goes, well, you're going to work where I work so I can watch you. And so he got me this temporary job at the Los Angeles Unified School District. They have a division. I think it's the second largest school district in the United States. And, you know, they have thousands and thousands of employees, thousands of schools. And he was a mason and a plasterer. And what he did is went around, you know, fixed holes where all the kids put their fists through the wall and that kind of stuff. And I got a job there, and it was just more of the same. It was in South Central Los Angeles. My first job there, I was on a crew of like 8 guys, and every one of them was like from South Central Los Angeles. And then there was me. I was like Wonder Bread, you know. And we'd go to the worst high schools. I mean, we'd go to some of the schools and go, well, you can't go to that area today in the school. And we go, why? Oh, well, because they found a body there this morning. You know, it was one of those kind of things. And, you know, you'd hear gunshots. This was like in the early 80s. And it was during the Olympics of 1984. So also the school had a lot of extra money because they were going to use the schools for the athletes to practice at. So they had a lot of money. So they had all this funding for all these temporary employees. And I got that job, and I did okay there. I mean, it was an easy job. I mean, my job was basically moving furniture, and we would work till like 12 o'clock and then drink Old English 800 the rest of the day. and I was and I got culturized. I mean, I actually became black in this process somehow. Like we started listening to rap and NWA, and I was really into it. And I remember one time I went into a Korean grocery store, and then all this rap music, they're really against the Koreans because the Koreans have a habit of shooting black people and not getting prosecuted. So, and I remember going into this Korean grocery store and getting really upset. I go, "You're the owner?" And they go, "Yes, I'm the owner." And I go, and I just leave because they were Korean, you know. So this is where my head was before I got sober, you know, because I'm the furthest thing from black, and I was just a big joke to these guys trying to be black, you know. And I mean, these guys were from South Central, you know. But anyway, it was kind of a good time, and they were. If you like Old English and 800 and NWA, but anyway, no. So anyway, what had happened is for a couple of days, I got they did. Here we go again with the test, but they got so much funding that they opened up this program, and they said, if you have a temporary job or a job within the LA School District, we're going to open up apprenticeships for all these trades. You know, it was like carpenter, plumber, you know, air conditioning, and so, you know, here one more time I'm taking these tests, and there was like thousands of people that took these written tests, you know, and I actually studied for these tests because my girlfriend's dad, you know, showed me what books I had to get and stuff, and I was the number one guy that came out on these tests. There was like 5 people that scored 100% on everything, and I was one of those 5, and they. Which kind of gave me this ticket, like, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I think I want to be a carpenter. I have no idea why I said that. But anyway, I worked for so I started this apprenticeship with the carpenters, and I was there 3 months, and I was working with these plumbers, and I was kind of, we were doing this job together at one of the schools, and I was hanging out with the plumbers, and I'd hang out with these guys, and what I noticed about the plumbers is they'd go on these like elementary school campuses, and then all these teachers and principals, and hey, can you come over this weekend and fix this? Which is kind of like what being a plumber is. It's you can't go very far where someone asks you for free plumbing advice or, can you come and fix something? But I thought like, well, those guys are really in demand, and I go, that's the job for me. I want a job where I'm in demand. And so I asked to change my apprenticeship, and I did, and I really loved this job. I mean, I felt like such an adult. I felt like I had such a future with this job, And I was there a couple months, and they gave me this job. One of your first jobs, when you're anytime you're an apprentice, you basically get the lowest of the jobs. You do the coffee, and my job was basically delivering plumbing parts, which was really bad because I spent a lot of time by myself, alone in a truck. And within like 6 months, I had three accidents in these vehicles, and one of them was kind of serious, and plus, I was just of course, I had any issue with authority, and here I got this really great job that I really love, but for some reason I can't get it together. I can't like, I want to do really good at this job. I mean, I could do the work good, but I can't deal with my bosses, and I can't deal with all these people that they're putting me with and stuff like that. And so what had happened is I got in trouble for just a lot of things, but mainly crashing the vehicles. And this boss tried to fire me, or he fired me. He goes, "You got to go home." He goes, "That's it." He goes, "You're just too much. You're just too much trouble." And then I had one day, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and all of a sudden this union rep called me, and he goes, "Did he make you leave the job?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "You can't do that. You're in the plumbing union and you're in the LAUSD school union. Thank God for you." I didn't even know I was in a union. I just saw it on my check. I just saw like they took the money out in my check, and he goes, "Well," so he talked to me. I said, "Well, I wrecked a couple of trucks." And he just asked me, he goes, "Were you high? Were you smoking weed? What was going on?" And I thought, God, how offensive is that? Why does he think that? But anyway, he goes, "Well," I go, "Why do you ask that?" And he goes, "Well, because if you say you're an alcoholic, they have to send you to rehab. They can't really fire you because." And I go, "Really? That seems crazy." But anyway, the long and short of it is, I ended up getting my job back, but I had to agree to going to some form of treatment, and so I went in there and I talked to the main guy. They broke us up into districts, and I went into that main guy, and I said, I know I've been in a lot of trouble. I don't know if you know what's going on, but I talked to a union rep, and they say I can volunteer for rehab. And he shut the door behind him, and I thought, either he's going to be a total asshole about this, or he's going to. I didn't really know what was going on, and he goes, "I understand your problem." He goes, "I get it." And he goes, "You really came to the right guy," and I go, "Really?" And I'm thinking he's going to say like, "Well, I'm a drug addict or an alcoholic too," but he goes, "Me and my wife are in OA, so I know what your problem is." And I'm thinking, "Oh, so you're eating like tuna sandwiches and wrecking trucks?" I didn't know what to think, but thank God I had people like that in my life. I mean, because I didn't even know about this program, let alone a program for Overeaters Anonymous. Like how self-destructive is that? I mean, I got a really self-destructive thing here, but thank God he understood, and he totally was with me. And so it started off, the way they did it is, well, you got to talk to a psychiatrist, and I thought they were going to put me in this rehab, and she goes, I think you need to spend 30 days in a mental hospital. And I thought, really? And she goes, I can have an ambulance here like in 20 minutes if you want to go. And I go, wait a minute, I got to think about this, But so anyway, I went back. So what had happened is I went, well, it's near the end. I'm going to go on a hell of a bender, But what happened is I had like several benders after that. Like they were really bad benders. The worst and last bender I had was at this place called the Red Onion, and they had the Cuervo Gold Girls there. And the Cuervo Gold Girls would walk around. It was like a Tuesday or something, and they would wear these sashes, like that have the bullets in it, but they had shot glasses in it, and they were in bikinis, and they'd have this tray, and you could do $1 a shot. And one of my last memories was giving her $10 and her setting up 10 shots, and I just remember the one shot being like so harsh, and then that last shot going, man, this is the smoothest stuff I've ever drank. And that's the last thing I remember for that night. That's the very last thing. And And, and the next day, and I was supposed to go to work that day. I didn't go to work that day. I was just too hungover. And I just hear this pounding on the door. And I look out and I could see, I was lived in this house with like 6 or 8 guys. We were all sharing this big house. And of course, I'm the only one home. Everybody else is like at work and stuff. And I just hear this pounding on the door, and I look out and I could kind of see through this curtain, and I see 2 cops standing there, and so I'm just standing there like this, and all of a sudden the cop goes, "We see you in there," and he's going like this, and I'm thinking like I'm just gonna be real still. He's gonna think I'm like a statue or something maybe, but so. Forgot about that one, but anyway, so I open the door and I go, "Yeah, officer, how can I help you?" And I'm obviously, I got this long hair, and I'm sure he could smell alcohol. I mean, he goes, "Well, somebody was jogging at like around 5 o'clock this morning, one of your neighbors, and somebody ran them over and killed them, and we're just knowing, did you see anything? Do you know anything?" And I was terrified because I couldn't remember. I remember in a blackout, and I had a habit of driving in blackouts. And I had this 4-wheel drive truck, and it would have been very easy for me to run over somebody and not know it. And for some reason, and of course, I was just terrified, So the first thing I did is I went out and I looked and I didn't see my truck. And my truck, for some reason, I have no idea why I did this that night. But we had a way to like pull the truck into the gate. I'm inside the gate, and for some reason I parked the truck inside of the gate, and I thought, shit, I think I hit somebody, and I think I'm trying to cover it up in my blackout. So I looked around, I didn't see blood, but that day I was just terrified. I took the truck to the car wash, and I had them detail it, and the whole time I'm looking for brain matter, and stuff like that. And thank God by the end of that day, the person that killed this woman confessed to it. But anyway, and this is after, I'm going to these psychiatrists, and they're telling me, we want to put you in a mental hospital because rehab's not going to work for someone like you, and all this stuff. So, and that's what happened. I better hurry up and get sober here. But anyway, so I ended up ended up going to this mental hospital, and during intake, and they showed me all these tests, and they said, you have malnutrition, you have vitamin deficiencies. I couldn't believe, like a guy my age, I was like this 23-year-old guy, and I had all these major health issues for a guy this young. And I remember the nurse, another person, going, she goes, "I don't really think you need to be here. I think you're just an alcoholic." And I couldn't believe somebody would tell me that. Like who the F are you telling me I'm an alcoholic? And you're a professional. You can't diagnose me. But anyway, I was really rebellious about it. And what had happened in that mental hospital is they used to have panels come in, and this guy came into this panel. I found out later he was a chronic slipper. He'd been slipping for like 10 years in AA, but he had like 30 days. And do we have a big book here? Anyway. Anyway, he did this thing where he was a really fast talker. He was a used car salesman, excellent talker. And he goes, this is the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a solution to your problem, no matter what it is, and he used like all these racial slurs, He goes, it doesn't matter if you're black, Latino, and he went through this whole thing, and it was this great, like, kind of canned pitch. But for some reason, I think because he was such a bullshit artist, I kind of like bonded with this guy, and he gave me my first big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I remember reading that and thinking, this is some kind of religious thing. This is some kind of Christian stuff. Anyway, the long and short of it is, it was my first, and I did kind of start reading it, and between the Thorazine and all that, what I could understand of it. But anyway, so I did I started going to the meetings there. I started really liking the meetings, and one thing I learned about the meetings is like what they wanted me to do in this hospital is kind of admit to my problem. And I met this nurse in there, and I got really close with her. She was really into the same kind of music I was into and all this stuff. And one night she goes, "Have you ever thought of going to a meeting outside of here? An AA meeting?" And I go, "Yeah, I guess when I get out." And she goes, "Oh no, we can give you a pass if you want to go out to a meeting." And I went, "Really?" And I go, "Well, yeah, sure, I want to get out of here." And she goes, "Well, there's a meeting by my house, and if you go to the meeting and get this card signed, you could come over to my house afterward." And she had what I wanted, and I was willing to go to any length. So I was still a dumb, naive guy going, is she hitting on me or not? But anyway, so I went to this meeting, and I was just amazed at all these people. I mean, I couldn't, for some reason I thought every meeting would have like 4 or 5 people. I thought people would be like in raincoats. But the saving grace was Aerosmith started going to AA the same year I did. And I remember Steven Tyler would say stuff like, well, it's, about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but now it's just about the sex and the rock and roll, and so it kind of gave me this incentive to kind of go to AA. But I didn't see any of that in Glendale, the Glendale Windsor Club. There was no Aerosmith, no celebrities, nothing. But I remember this girl, the first girl I ever heard share in Alcoholics Anonymous, her name was Brandy, of all things. And the crowd went wild for her. She was this very, very cute, 25-year-old girl. And they just really loved her, and she was the first person up to the podium, and she went, my name's Brandy, I'm an alcoholic. And everyone went, hi, Brandy. And I just couldn't, I was like, whoa, I was just blown away by this. And then I would but I was just marking time at the meeting. All I could think about is getting to this nurse's house, And I remember just standing in the corner, and this guy comes over, and he goes, are you new? And I'm thinking, like, that's a really personal question, And he wouldn't stop. He goes, how you doing? And I thought, God, these guys are really, like, invading my space, and all this stuff. But I started getting it because I went to that meeting every night for like 4 nights in a row, because I go to the meeting and get to go see her, and then it was really awkward seeing her at work the next day. Especially, I was pretty sure we weren't supposed to be doing that, I'm sure that wasn't in her guidelines, and I found out later, I got my heart broken finding out I wasn't the only guy that she was doing that with. She had problems of her own, but anyway, I didn't care, All I knew is I was getting sober and getting laid at the same time, and there was nothing better than that as far as I was concerned. So anyway, so that's how I got into this really spiritual program, So it kind of started my journey in AA, and I didn't really take it serious, I kind of used AA as like, I ended up going back to work, and the thing is, when you're in AA, people leave you alone, and I got in my office. My area was like South Central, but that's really close to Hollywood, and our office was really close to Hollywood. And I started going to these noon meetings in Hollywood, and I started seeing these celebrities there, and I mean, these were like major celebrities too. I guess celebrities have a lot of time on their hands because these noon meetings were really packed, and there was all these really beautiful women there trying to get into commercials and all this other stuff, and I was in this crowd that I had never been in before. I'd never been a part of this. I grew up in this sort of hick family, a bunch of losers, and then all of a sudden with these people that are really wealthy, with really well known, some of them, and some of these guys were heavy hitters, and it kind of made the fact that I was an alcoholic a lot easier, seeing these celebrities that I loved, seeing them on TV and in movies, and wow, here I am kind of hanging out with them, getting to talk to them. But kind of what AA did also was I could get away with murder like for a year. Like I could be late, I could be 2 hours late, and they go, well, why are you late? And I go, I had to do an AA thing, But I also had to show proof that I was going to AA. So sometimes I would just go get that core card signed and show them, like, look, I went to the AA meeting. And then, of course, I discovered I could sign my own cards, And in the meantime, I kept drinking and using, here and there. And finally, what happened after a couple months in AA is there was this Wednesday night meeting called Architects of Adversity in West Hollywood, and it was a really big meeting, very extremely popular meeting with over 100 people or so. And I remember there was the coffee commitment was open, and generally nobody wants the coffee commitment, so I said I'd take it, and then this really cute girl goes, well, I want the commitment. So they actually voted for who did the coffee, and so we had to go outside, and I guess I got like 3 votes to do the coffee, and she got like the other 100 and something votes probably. And but anyway, we're walking out to our cars so what they did is they made me her assistant, and so we're walking out to the car. So we're walking out to the cars, and she had a Mercedes, and I had like a '65 Falcon, with different colored doors and stuff, but she didn't know that she had to take the coffee pots with her, and she goes, well, I can't put these in my husband's car. he doesn't want these pots. He goes, your job is to bring me these coffee pots every week. And I never saw her again after that. So, but I was stuck with this commitment, and I told the secretary, I don't know where so-and-so is. He goes, well, because I guess you got the coffee commitment. And I took that commitment really, really serious. I started bringing all these flavored teas, and then a couple weeks later, I started bringing these. I started bringing like lemonade and just all this stuff. And the secretary goes, our budget's usually like a few dollars, but you're up to like in $20-something worth of stuff every week, But and so then this lady one time she brought some kind of sun tea or something, and I got really offended that she was like trying to get into my area, But what it did is it got me serious about AA, and I love that commitment. But what I did, I kind of did this major thing, this screw up, is I there was this girl there I liked, and I got her high. We got high after the meeting, and I was still smoking weed. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, even though the triangle people said, you can't smoke weed. I got her high, and I couldn't believe that the next meeting I saw her at went to a meeting the next night, and she told every person in there that I got her high, and I felt so bad because she was this really well-loved person, but people took a different approach. It was the first time I wasn't really punished, as they were really concerned. And these men took me aside and they go, you got to leave the women alone, and you can't do this kind of stuff. You can't. These people are serious. You might kill that girl out there. That girl's a heroin addict, and you've gotten stoned with her. She might not stay. And I started getting it. This is like a family where people are really trying to work together and help each other. And I felt really, really bad about that. I hadn't felt that bad about anything in a long time. I was kind of a sociopath when I came in, and I didn't. But I started feeling for people, which was this big revelation of being, being sober, and or at least going to the program. And so, and this guy that talked to me, he goes, well, let's go to coffee. He was kind of a big shot too, and he had like we went to this restaurant, all these people in this restaurant kept coming up and shaking his hands and all this stuff, and I just didn't know who this guy was, but it turned out he was had something to do with managing celebrities or something. But he was a really fast talker, which I kind of like that. So I asked him to sponsor me, and he says, well, you talk a lot about the meds that you're on, and he goes, I have nothing against meds, but I don't know how to sponsor somebody on meds. And I go, well, I don't want to do meds. And he goes, well, you have to tell the doctor you don't want to do meds. And I go, well, he's probably going to wean me off for 6 months or whatever. So I remember talking to the doctor. He actually called me on the phone. I go, I want to go on meds. He goes, I don't think you need meds. I thought there was going to be this really long process, and I couldn't imagine living life completely sober on the natch. But anyway, I haven't done anything since that day. And I've been sober ever since that day, April 8th, 1986. It was the last time I ever did a drug. And it just amazes me. Because I'm not designed for sobriety. My brain is not designed for reality. And, and like I said, Alcoholics Anonymous has been a journey. I'm going to tell a little bit about what it's like today. I have a daughter with someone in Alcoholics Anonymous, and when she was pregnant, I didn't want to be married, and I don't think she wanted to marry me, and I didn't even really want nothing to do with her after she was pregnant, unfortunately, and now I'm bonded for life with this person. But anyway, I have this beautiful daughter of it. But what had happened is I got really disillusioned with AA because a lot of people in AA really got mixed up in our drama. I'd go to court, and two of my best friends would be sitting with her in court over, I go, this is like family law. And even the judge was saying, this isn't like a participation sport, But there's this whole faction of AA that's really into the drama and all that stuff. And so what I did is I was bottoming out in sobriety. I thought I was going to I just wanted to kill myself. I was losing a ton of money, and there's things going on with my business at the time. And the long and short of it is I ended up going to Thousand Oaks to Visions, and through work I'd visit Visions occasionally, but I'd see these people really transform, and there was this guy there doing these steps from this group called the Waterian Group, And it's basically where the men get together, and even in the format it says this is an AA meeting because we don't take any bullshit here. And I got mixed up with this step group, and the guy that I asked to sponsor me, or take me through the steps, he was very, very serious about the steps. And he had history and a reputation for helping people through steps. And I immersed myself within the steps within a year, and it was more or less just as a distraction to get through this whole custody thing and everything like that. And like I said, it completely changed my life. I have like a lack of drama in my life. I don't get mixed up in people's business anymore. For me to go to a meeting, I'm there for one purpose only, and that's to stay sober and help the newcomer, And I still do all the gossip and everything, but it completely changed my perception. It completely changed my life and my perception, But, like today, so anyway, like what it's like today, I got the traveling bug, I was supposed to have my daughter on a Christmas a couple years ago, and of course, somehow I got manipulated out of that, got shorted out of that, and this woman I was dating at the time, one of her coworkers won this trip to Italy and couldn't go, and she goes, "We can go to Italy. Do you want to go?" And like 3 days later, I was on a plane for Italy. And I had never done anything that spontaneous like that in my life, and it was one of the best experiences I had. And then my daughter moved, and I started having to get on a lot of planes, and you meet the most interesting people in airports. And there was this lady sitting next to me. She was doing the computer, and I could see what she was doing, and she was a professional vlogger. And what she did is her and her husband travel like all over the world making these videos. And she goes, I go, "Well, where are you going next?" She goes, "Well, after I visit my family, I'm going to go to the Dominican Republic." And she goes, "You should go." And I go, "What are you talking about? I can't go." I go, I'm planted. And I'm sure she says this all the time, but she goes, "You're planted." She goes, "You got feet. You can move. Trees have roots. They have to stay." And so I did that. I had one of my employees find my passport and send it to me, and I went and visited these people in Cancun, or not Cancun, sorry, I've been in Cancun, but the Dominican Republic, and then it just kind of started one thing after another. My friend's married to a Thai woman and has this huge Thai family back in Thailand, and I wouldn't go to his wedding 10 years ago. I just refused. I go, "You're crazy. I'm not going to that place. It's all transvestite assassins, And actually, there is transvestite assassins there, but that's another whole story. But so anyway, I just started traveling, and I went with this, and these were all guys I got sober with in Pacific Group, and it was like 12 of us. We went to his house to watch his house get blessed by these monks, and we were gone for 2 weeks, and it was the most amazing experience I ever had, and I can't stop traveling. I've been able to, in 2 years. I've traveled over 200,000 miles in 2 years and still run my business. It's been very successful. I thought, well, I'm going to lose all this work. And what happens is because I'm gone, I'm not micromanaging everything. Those have been my best weeks is when I'm gone, So I don't know. That's what my life's like today. And this is not the life I thought I would have. I was a very terrified person. Everybody asks me all the time, don't you get scared going all these places? Because I'm trying to kind of get in touch with humanity, and I feel like I really can't do it as much here as I can I went to this charity thing where these people have been in refugee camps for like 30 years, I know I'm going to quit. But anyway, I'm just saying that this is my life, and I love my life, and it's all because of Alcoholics Anonymous. Anyway.
Let's give our speaker another hand. This has been another regular meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous at the Friday Night East End group speaker meeting. We invite you all to attend next week's meeting. Keep coming back, as all members of our community are welcome. If you brought an attendance card, remember to pick them up from the treasurer's table. Thank you all for attending, especially the new people. We hope to see you all next week. If you have any questions about the recordings, please see Max. There, Max. So if you have any questions about, to those who volunteer to help break down the meeting, please see Johnny S. Johnny S. After the prayer. I will now read a vision for you and then ask for a moment of silence for those who still suffer from this illness in and out of these rooms. Then would our speaker please lead us in a prayer of his choice as a vision for all of us. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you all and keep you all until then. A moment of silence for the alcoholic who still suffers. You did a great job.
Thank you. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Hey, you can back. It works if you work it. Right on.